All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 4:04 p.m. and let's start with the roll call. I'll go ahead and start off. This is Carmen Matthews with the City of Coos Bay.
Coco Sutton, City of Coos Bay Parks Commission.
Jamie Faraday, Parks Commission.
Patty Scott, Parks Commission.
Kirk Benward, Parks Commission.
Greg Hamlet, City of Coos Bay.
Jennifer Wersing, City of Coos Bay.
Christina Texera, City of Coos Bay.
And Amy Edmonds, City of Coos Bay.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to public comment, which is item number 2. Do we have anybody that would like to make a public comment?
There is nobody signed up.
No one online, it looks like. So we are good there. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, which is the action items, starting with the Marshfield Cemetery update.
The Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery update, Cricket Souls was going to present that. She is not here, so I think we can skip that agenda item.
All right, let's go on to move to agenda item sub B, which would be presentation by ODFW to install an ADA compliant fishing dock at the John Toppitz Park.
So before we get started with this staff report, it was suggested by one of the commissioners that staff kind of minimizes the reading of the staff reports to the commission body because you guys have the staff reports. However, I think that a staff report is not just for the benefit of the commission members, but it is also for the folks in the audience and anybody that may be reading online. With that, though, I think that it's maybe a topic for conversation at a future meeting, that if the chair or the vice chair of the commission would like to ask staff not to read staff reports completely, that's something that maybe we can address in the future. But I think for the benefit of this meeting, I think it's appropriate that we just continue on with status quo until a decision is able to be made at a future date. If there's any objections to that at this point by the chair, and I hear the vice chair or the commission, I would like to go ahead and move forward with the
Let's go ahead and move forward.
staff report. Okay. So this is the presentation of the ODFW to install an ADA-compatible fishing dock at John Toppitz Park. So the Empire Lakes is a very popular destination for trout fishing in the Coos Bay area, receiving the most angling effort of any trout fishery in Coos County. ODFW stocks rainbow trout in the local district lakes in the springtime every few weeks from March to early June, with one more stocking in mid-October. The trails around Empire Lakes provide good bank access to 2 lakes, with Middle Empire being somewhat deeper and less prone to growing aquatic weeds than the shallower lower lake. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife staff have worked with the City of Coos Bay to obtain a grant through ODFW Restoration and Enhancement, the R&E program, to install an ADA-compatible fishing dock at Mid-Lake. The R&E program takes a surcharge from the sales of angling license to restore and enhance infrastructure to benefit anglers and to provide improved access opportunities. Currently, R&E funding is available to implement this fishing dock installation prior to June of 2025. The design was identified in ODFW's 25-year angling enhancement plan with a key objective of improving bank angling access for angling public that don't have boats. It also meets ODFW's goals to provide inclusive outdoor opportunities for those with disabilities and a diverse community. With that, we do have an exhibit. Amy, if you could pull up that exhibit. And we also have Gary Vanderoe from ODFW here to help present this project and maybe answer any questions.
Yeah.
My understanding is that there will be a memorandum of understanding that the city will maintain this over the lifetime of the docks.
Okay.
Can I add on that too?
Please.
Like that would be correct for the city being kind of the owner.
But like a lot of things, like boat ramps, where we have agreements with the the county of Coos County and other things, we are more than willing to help out if something needs to be repaired to help find money. If it deals with fishing, we are more than willing to kind of help.
Ooh, put that in the memorandum of understanding right away.
Yeah, not a blank check, but
Yeah. This one may be to you. I noticed the design of it looks like it moves up and down.
Yes.
Okay. So we're sure it's out there far enough that depending upon water fluctuation and the lake that we're going to be fine?
Yes, Bryce, our project manager, went out, took water depths, and it's actually he's designed it to be near the old channel. So there's an old creek channel there, so it gets us to there. And so, one of the things might be like, well, there's a lot of bank access. Why do we need this? We've learned watching fishermen, having kids fishing events there, that the farther you got to cast out, the better the fishing typically got to be. So there's that magic distance. And so this kind of makes it to the point where really you don't have to be able to cast super far. All you got to do is get your line over the top of the dock. And, it's our goal to have, these are rainbow trout we're putting in the lake. There's other warm water fish species there. The main focus for the dock would be rainbow trout fishing. Our goal is to have as many of those caught as possible. So I think the last survey we did with those trout, the, kind of 10-inch trout was about, I think 40 to 50% were being caught. Our big trophy trout, they get caught at like 80 to 90%. We'd like to see all our fish be closer to that 80 to 90%.
Cool, thanks.
So, yep.
I think it's a good idea to, I know you're talking about casting out farther, but particularly people that suffer from some impairments, and maybe wheelchair-bound walkers, they don't have the ability to cast very far. So it's great, so I'm glad to see it's ADA compliant.
Yeah.
But this is another question to the city then. Where are the disabled and handicapped parking lots in relationship to where this dock is going in? Because I know some of my friends that have some mobility problems, it's difficult for them to walk very far. And I think, this would be a great resource for them to be able to fish.
I believe that there is, I don't know that answer off the top of my head. Let me pull up my GIS, see if I can ascertain that
Well,
information.
you don't need to. It's just something when we eventually do it, something to consider about where we may have parking for people if closer to that dock so they can get to it.
It's a good question.
I had a comment on that. I know that the current ADA parking is actually, when you're looking at the picture, because there's a host site there, the closest parking is the host, and then there's no parking where the restroom is. So when you go down further, it doesn't show this, but if you go past the kayak launch and you go to the far ends of that parking lot across from the playground, that's where the ADA parking is. So it's actually further from the kayak launch, which is ADA, and this proposed launch. So that's kind of curious, because normally when you have ADA structures, the closest parking would be for those individuals and not the furthest. So that was the only thing that I noticed at the site.
I think when
Well,
we.
my guess,
Go ahead.
sorry. My guess was that since this is a newly added asset, the ADA parking was sited closer to the current assets. So this might require a revision or an addition of ADA accessible parking, but since this is an addition, I think that this is why we're seeing it farther away. It's just existing structure, so something to put on another agenda item, that's my guess.
Yeah, and staff can definitely look into the possibility of adding ADA stalls a little bit closer down on that side of the parking lot.
Yeah, I think, and to echo Carmen, when we did that playground curb and then the curb cut for some of that exercise equipment there, that's when we took a look at the ADA parking, because I believe that there wasn't any designated, or there was only a few designated. And so since we had the funds to put the sidewalk in at that time, that's when we actually put the ADA.
And when we added the ADA kayak launch, ADA compliant kayak launch, we did add an ADA stall there as well. So.
Perfect.
Thank you for thinking of us and building this dock.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a great addition to the park.
Yes.
So, back to the staff report, unless there's any other questions for Gary. No other questions for Gary? Let me zoom in on this because my eyes are getting older. If it pleases the commission, recommend the approval of the ODFW to install the ADA-compatible fishing dock at John Toppitz Park, Mid-Lake, that will be fully funded by the R&E program. Staff will present the recommendation of this body to the Public Works Director for a final decision.
I'm looking for a motion.
So move.
I've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just, maybe it's another time, but is there, I know this has come up in our conversations internally, if there's any agreements you guys need to have with ODFW other than this approval for doing work on, having a contract to do the work on the project?
Yeah, we'll
Work through that.
work through that process.
Okay. Just wanted to ask it while I was here.
No, it's a great question. Yeah, we'll work through that process as we move along. Thank you, Gary.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you don't have to stay through the whole meeting if you want. But
Unless you really want to.
Unless you see everybody out.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on down to item 3C, Front Street update.
So this is the review, bicycle and pedestrian improvements associated with the Front Street Blueprint and discuss a grant opportunity. So the City of Coos Bay has designated the Parks Commission as an advisory body in aiding city staff regarding bike and pedestrian improvements throughout the city. As such, staff will be engaging the commission and seeking recommendations from the commission to determine safe and common sense guidance during the design process of road construction and when and where to designate bike lanes for future projects for functional class roads of arterial and collector designations. The Front Street Blueprint was adopted by the City Council prior to the Parks Commission being assigned the bicycle and pedestrian duties, but staff wanted to familiarize the commission with the project and advise the commission of the Oregon Community Pass Grant. The Coos Bay Front Street Blueprint Design Project seeks to transform the waterfront area into a vibrant, accessible destination that promotes community interaction and economic development, featuring a design proposal to install bicycle and pedestrian facilities along Front Street. This project aligns with the program goal of the Oregon Community Pass Grant, which states, "This grant program is dedicated to helping communities create and maintain connections through multi-use paths with the goal of complementing and expanding existing active transportation programs across the state." This grant was applied for 2 years ago for the Front Street project. Unfortunately, the Front Street project was not selected, but ODOT staff encouraged the city to reapply this year. So the city is going to be reapplying for this grant. The budget implications for this grant, for this project, the preliminary budget estimate for this design and construction of the Front Street Blueprint improvements is $4,478,436.25. The city will be submitting a letter of interest that is due on September 16th, 2024 for design. A decision based off the LOI is anticipated to be made on September 30th, 2024 as to whether the city is eligible to apply for the grant. If the city is successful and the project is selected to apply for the grant, staff is prepared to apply for the grant totaling $675,000, in which 10.72%, which is $72,403 of that amount will be the city's required match. The match total of $72,403 will be funded by the Capital Fund 45 titled Construction, Bike, Ped, and Paths. Currently, I'm sorry.
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Can we just do like the bullet points?
We've had this discussion.
We can.
And just, yeah, just because I appreciate you and I appreciate all the effort that goes into your staff reports.
Sure.
And I really hope that everyone reads them before we get here.
So as I I like that. And it's not, I thought Kurt just didn't like my voice. Or my reading. One thing that I would like to say is that the staff reports are not just for us at the dais. It's
Okay.
also for anybody who may be listening or in the audience. I see that there's nobody in the audience today.
Yeah.
Or anybody online other than Mr. Matthews or Commissioner Matthews. But we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I would appreciate, because we have so much, I'd like to get to the meat and the potatoes.
Let's get to the meat and taters.
And because also this is online too, so if anybody's online watching, they can click on it and skim it. So, but I do appreciate everything that you do.
Perfect.
Okay.
So we can
And
skip
I
to the,
appreciate that you have a radio voice for this, but,
I do have a face for the radio.
my question is,
Let's jump to the questions.
we're going after the grant that would do the actual design of the implementation, because what we have now is the strong suggestions of the blueprint master plan, but no actual definitive engineering drawings.
Correct. We have 30%.
Okay.
I'd like to jump in there. We have 30% design drawings, but that's only for the northern half of the project limits. It's from about date cedar to fir. But I don't even, well, I think that they're not worthy. ODOT has a process, and it's a federal process. So I think they'll be able to use our base mapping. I think they'll be able to use some of the design, but they're gonna wanna start and look at this whole thing and make sure the plans conform with their federal crosscutters and all of their federal requirements. So I don't think it's work that we're gonna throw out the window, but I did wanna kind of back up a little bit because we are backing up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you look at me.
I know.
Well, Coco had her hand up
Okay.
first. Go, Coco.
I had read this, and since this is an ongoing plan that's been talked about, the Front Street project, the part for the bicycle and pedestrians that you're presenting for us today, none of this is coming out of the Parks Capital Improvement Fund. This is from another fund, correct?
So the match would come out of the parks, the construction of the bike and path, capital fund 45.
Okay.
And did we increase capital fund line 45 at all? No.
No,
That's the 450,000, correct?
1%. 1% it was increased.
So 1% of gas tax goes into bike
Okay.
and ped fund.
But this isn't the 450,000 capital
No,
improvement?
no,
That's
this
what
is
I
the
was
167,000
wanting
line item, and I
okay,
think
that's what I
last
thought.
year we put in about 15,000. I can get you that exact number if you want.
Actually, I think it's probably in the budget update.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I was getting at was ongoing, the budget implications on this are not directly associated with that 450,000 from the design element, and then down the road, if it gets built, it's still going into that gas tax for that, correct?
Well, we don't have the funding source for construction just yet, so, but I haven't seen them use the parks budget in the past for something like this.
Thank you.
Jennifer waits with bated breath. So first let me ask the question, you know, the letter of interest was supposed to be on the 16th. Did we send it in already?
So we did, but before we went any further, we really wanted to consult with you. And we did, just because that's how the timing works on these things, and you guys only meet once a month, so, okay, thank you, appreciate that support.
And then, so I guess the big picture thing is kind of what you want from us, since we've done the letter of intent, is saying, hey, it's a great idea to go for the grant for the Front Street design and to move forward with this project on Front Street. That's kind of the recommendation that you want from the commission?
Absolutely, but we could always rescind the letter of intent if you want us to expend our efforts elsewhere, so.
No, I mean, I think it's important that we do something down Front Street. It's a part of the city that's growing, and I think it's a great idea to have a plan from down there, so I'm glad you guys did that. Along with that, I know that the stuff that you gave us in the packet, I believe is actually what was submitted last time for consideration for the design grant. Is that correct?
What was in the packet was the Front Street blueprint.
Yeah, the stuff that you gave us today with all of the drawings and here's where we're gonna do this and all that stuff, that was what was submitted to ODOT for the, in trying to get a grant to do the design, is that correct?
Basically, what we based off was page 21, let's see, what was the PDF? In your packet, yeah, page 21 and 22.
Okay, so they didn't get the whole packet, they just basically got that.
They did.
Okay.
They did.
And when we send in the new grant request, is it gonna be that a minimal submission as well?
With the way these grants are going, and I'll let Christina jump in if she wants to, they're kind of all set up the same way. So I think we'll have the capability to add more attachments. And so we could add this whole Front Street blueprint attachment to show that it's in an approved report. But we made that clear in the LOI, in the letter of intent as well.
Okay, and the only reason I ask is because I don't know if the Parks Commission wants to spend a lot of time going over the details of that old plan that was submitted to us in our packet, because I have some questions about some things about it, but do we really want, I don't know if we really want to spend a whole bunch of time on that if that's not what's going to be submitted, is what I'm saying.
Well, and I think the idea to get this blueprint in front of you folks was that this blueprint was approved before you took on the bike and ped responsibility. We wanted you to be familiar with it, but it's a high-level planning document, and where the meat and potatoes, it's when we get into design. And so if we are successful in getting this grant, we'd probably ask for some commissioners' involvement in some sort of task force to work with the consultant to provide input on the design. Does that answer your question, Kurt?
I think so. I mean, because there's, I'll give you an example. There's things that's in that packet. For example, I'm going to take a bike path, just because, you know, that's one of the things that I guess we're dealing with. So it shows a bike path on Highway 101 going north from Market Street to First Street, okay? But there's no bike path before that, and there's no bike path after that. And it's kind of one of those things, why do we put a bike path in the middle of nowhere? Maybe we should just direct everybody to go up Front Street and use Sharon's on Front Street and not even have a bike path.
Okay.
So it's that kind of thing, that kind of detail in the plan, but I don't think we want to spend today's time going over all of that stuff.
No, I don't think so. And just so you know, the letter of intent was only for improvements on Front Street. It did not have any improvements on the 101.
Okay.
In fact, I think that was actually somewhat of a requirement from them.
Yeah.
Was a requirement from them?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think part of it, because we have this blueprint and we have the Empire District blueprint and we have all these blueprints and things that are percolating and doing, which goes back to why it's so important for us to have the bike and ped TSP plan that kind of does our overall goals.
The
So as
comprehensive.
so as we're looking at each of these individual areas where they overlap, we can already have some of these conversations going. So then we don't have, you know, whoever's working on this plan get all pissy because we're like, well, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't flow, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and based on our discussion last work session about potential funding things, and the thing about urban renewal district was brought up. I did some writing on urban renewal district, and the urban renewal district plan actually has that same bike path, in fact, a little bit farther on Highway 101, which is interesting to me. Which brings me to the next question, is that, you know, the grant that we're requesting for doing the design is that $675,000. But is that the design, and here's, so I'm not trying to be devious. Is that the design just for pedestrian and bike issues on Front Street? Or is that the design for the whole Front Street development that may include things other than specifically bike and ped? And I ask that because all the matching money is coming out of the bike and ped fund instead of like the urban renewal fund, because it's in the urban renewal district. And we may want that bike and ped money for some other projects in town.
And to tick onto his comment as well, is since we're reviewing this and since the boardwalk is considered park space, is this Front Street, once it's complete with the overlooks and the things and the parts and the pieces, is Front Street itself going to be considered an urban park? Or is that going to continue to be separate?
Well, I
And-
think that's somewhat up to you guys, too.
And then what
I
is,
don't think
what
that's
is the
staff.
funding implications for that? Is there a benefit for it to be a linear urban park? Or is the advantage that we carve out as much of the boardwalk as we can and we push it back into streets and roads, sorry. But is there, what is the definition and how do we capitalize on getting as much funds as possible?
No, I
into
think that's an
ours?
excellent question, and maybe a discussion that needs to occur at the joint work session. I mean, staff makes recommendations to budget, but it's the council and the budget committee that's the ultimate decision maker. And Carmen, feel free to jump, or Counselor Matthews, feel free to jump in here anytime. So,
I think the joint work session would be a great place to bring up that question, because honestly, I have no idea what would be the benefits of placing the, this particular project in streets or parks. I don't know. So definitely a great question.
Which, and goes back to Kurt's question of, if it's not parks, and are we footing the bill for the matching grant for the whole kit and caboodle when only 12% is bike and ped or whatever?
Well, I'm sorry, Greg. I was just going to say, I don't think it's actually parks money per se. And you guys can correct me. I think it's ped and bike money that comes out of the gas
the
tax.
state gas tax.
And so it really isn't parks money. So that strip of land doesn't have to be part of the park. It just has to become, if we're going to use bike and ped money for it, well, then we also do bike and pedestrian stuff now, so that's how come we're in the mix. My whole question was, if that whole design product is to help me bike and ped stuff, then I have no difficulty at all in all the money coming out of bike and ped. But if it's for changing some roads to one-way and repaving some things and doing something with the railroad tracks that have nothing at all to do with bike and ped, then I'm not sure all the funding should come out of bike and ped.
Agreed, this is solely for bike and ped. But I understand what you're saying. I think just for the rest of the commission, if you haven't reviewed the blueprint, there are some recommendations to have certain sections of this Front Street one-way.
All right, yeah. I think it's in front of the Knutson place and a few other places too, which, I guess they're okay with that, but that means getting in and out of there, they gotta go a roundabout way. But I guess if they're happy with that.
I don't think happy is the correct term.
Okay, thank you for correcting me there. I have to also mention, just as an aside, that in that plan, of course, we cited, if you look at the plan, if you look at one of the drawings, one of the keys, number 11, is where the windmill is going, which we're still working on. So that plan actually included the windmill being sited in that parking lot that's been developed down there. And that, again, that goes to that question about, is this kind of the plan, or are we going to do more with it? Because, I think that's still an issue we haven't decided yet. The plan shows it being sited there, which I can understand why Mr. Vaughn would be confused about where his windmill's going. And one last comment, and I'll leave it alone. I hope when this all happens, I hope, the big contention, one of the big contentions about any kind of bike path on down to Market Street from downtown Coos Bay has to do with the intersection at Market Street. And again, this is an opportune time to take a really close look at that. The current plan shows 3 crosswalks across Highway 101 that are going there. They show a crosswalk at Market, Cedar, and Fir. And it is so difficult to walk across Highway 101 going north. I just think it has to include more than crosswalks. I really think Market Street needs a lighted intersection, but that's me. So, but I'm all for I'm glad you sent in the letter of intent. I'm all for putting in for a grant to do the design down there. I may have some questions about the 10% match, but if it ends up being bike and ped, I'll succumb and say, yes, we'll just go ahead and do it, because I think it's important to develop that down there and to increase bike and pedestrian accessibility to Front Street and all the businesses down there.
Okay, we'll do Coco and then Jamie.
Yeah, I believe on your page 1, the objectives of this, which you're going to present to ODOT, is the multimodal transportation system. That's why you're going for the grant. And when you get a grant from them, usually that gives you access to ODOT's planning documentation because it's federal money, which can change. So a lot of these issues can be addressed at that point when you get the grant, correct?
That's our understanding.
Yep, that's how I understand it. So the multimodal transportation issue on this is a proposal. But when you're getting that letter of intent, if you get the money and you're successful, it's whatever ODOT and the transportation stuff has at that time. So this is just a starting point, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so do you need official movement from us, or can we just tell you to keep trucking along?
I do, I have a request.
Okay. Action requested.
I have an action requested. If it pleases the commission, approve staffs to continue efforts on the grant application for the Front Street Bike and Pedestrian Improvement Project.
Got a first
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving down to the quarterly budget update.
Bear with me 1 second. Page 70. Thank you.
Oops, oh man, I messed it up.
So this is the quarterly budget update. I have attached the city budget, the current FS10 report, which is our report from our finance department, currently of where we stand, all the expenditures that we have for our parks fund. Also, we've included the tracking tool that we use in the transportation facility side of things, and we also include the contractual breakdown. There's no requested action at this time. If you have any questions specifically to any of the documents, I can pull them up and we can try to answer them as best we can. If we need to come back with some more answers, we can.
I had a question on your fiscal year end. I think it's your tracking tool. It's called Legistar Web Production. That's your tracking tool, is that correct?
The budget tool?
Right, where it
Okay.
says percentage anticipated to year end. The only reason I'm asking a question is on some budgets, they show encumbrances. So you may have money that's not expended yet, but it's encumbered. And I had asked that of someone earlier on your park capital improvement funds. And it seemed like, the only reason I'm asking is because I know you have a lot of grants in the hopper. So I just wondered if encumbrances show on this, or is it just expenditures?
So this is just expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
However, Greg, on page 78, isn't that your encumbered amount for the contractual line item, which is really where a lot of those contracts are? So,
Sorry, let me just
That's
jump down there
okay.
real quick.
so Coco, on page 78, it shows a lot of our encumbered amounts out of that contractual line item. The budget was 167, I think.
For the bicycle?
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
167.
so that's where all of our contracts lie in this fund. So those are unencumbered amounts. The other one are just kind of O&M issues as they come up.
So that's what the last page in our attachment is, just to clarify.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think you guys are doing a good job. You know, on the expenditure side, it's below what you would expect for the first 3 months of the year, and I appreciate that, and I know fiscal times are difficult, but I think you're doing a fine job, so.
Thank you.
Any additional commissioner questions or comments reviewing the budget? All right, thank you so much for having that. I think it's really important to get the numbers in front of it, and I know it's an extra step, so we appreciate it.
Agreed. We actually meet monthly on this as well. We have internal conversation. I actually enjoy it. Because we get to show the good works that we're doing to the Public Works Director and the Deputy Public Works Director, and they get to pass that along to the city manager. So, and then we get to feel good about all the positive things that we're doing as well. So.
Right, perfect. Right, we're going down to item 3E, Adopt a Park Pilot Program Status Report. Coco?
I'll turn this right over to Coco.
Okay, thank you very much. I think everyone had an opportunity, and this is online if anyone needs to read. This was just an overview of what had happened since the last update. And we did have some additional funding come in for posts, so we're up to 7 posts now that are going to be funded to be replaced. I'd like to give a thank you to this gentleman here, Jamie Faraday, agreed to work on that, getting the work done on the post once we have the city purchase the 6x6. So I think it was successful in testing this program, because that's the whole purpose of the Adopt Park, is to test different types of events and pull in partnerships. And since John Toppet's Park is one that we get a lot of commentary on in meetings since I've been here, because a lot of people don't know the upper reaches of Mingus Park exist, I think it's important to look at further QR codes and things like that that make people feel safe in the park. And it was very enlightening to find out how many people were not aware of the See Something, Say Something program, which I think is an excellent program. It's a way for public to feel involved, whether they're visitors. And since we spend a lot of time and effort on tourism, I think that that's something that we want to promote more, and parks as other city events are a way to do that. Any questions?
No, I think, again, commend you on the mass amount of work and effort that you're doing, and it is very, very much appreciated. I heard nothing but positive things about the Dog Days of Summer event. So many people had an absolutely amazing time, so thank you so much. Okay, moving on down to item 3F, project updates. Hoo-hoo.
So I apologize, I prepared this before the memo of abbreviating it. So at the August 15th Park Commission meeting, it was agreed in an effort to enhance transparency and communication between staff and commission. Staff will provide monthly updates to the Park Commission for grants, capital improvements, and operation and maintenance projects. So for grants, we have the Mingus Park restrooms. The local government grant has been approved for funding through the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Pacific Power Foundation has been approved for $2,500 for the Mingus Park restrooms. The Front Street, Oregon Community Pass, staff did submit a letter of interest for 30% design of the Front Street and Boardwalk Pathway Improvements project. Mingus Park Community Building, People for Bikes, a letter of intent was also submitted to them to support the 10.27% match required for the Community Pass grant. Mingus Park Community Building, Ford Family Foundation awarded us $25,000 for the Mingus Park Community Building. Weyerhaeuser Giving Fund, staff is preparing another grant application for the Mingus Park Community Building, seeking $25,000. A letter of intent was submitted to the Kingsman Foundation for $5,000 to support the Mingus Park Community Building. There was also an application submitted to the National Register of Historic Places to place the Mingus Park Community Building on the National Register. John Toppet's Park, staff submitted an application to the Oregon State Fire Marshal aimed at mitigating fire risks posed by vegetation in John Toppet's Park. However, on August 28, 2024, the grantor raised concerns regarding the potential displacement of unhoused individuals as a result of the project. In response to this feedback and after consulting with the fire chief and grantor, staff had revised the project scope. Instead of the original plan to treat the 30-acre area in the southern portion of the park, the scope will The scope work will now focus on creating a defensible space around the park's perimeter. While the allocated funds may not cover the entire perimeter, this revision approach is deemed to have greater value and will prioritize areas with the highest fire risk. Grants not awarded, there was grant applications submitted to Ash Grove Charitable Foundation and T-Mobile Hometown Grant that were not successful. Capital improvements, safe routes to school. The consultant Alta Planning has organized an existing conditions meeting with the project management team on September 23rd and will be in Coos Bay for site visits from October 7th to October 8th, 2024. Alta Planning has provided outreach material that's attached to the staff report. Bike improvement facilities from Front Street to Mingus Park. The project was formerly known as the Sharrows Project. On September 24th, this project will be discussed in a joint work session with the Council and Park Commission. The Mingus Park Rewilding Project was put on hold for a archaeological investigation. We received those results this morning with no findings. Central Avenue road improvements from 11th Street to Ocean Boulevard. This project incorporates bike lanes. Civil West Engineer of Work has submitted 90% plans, and the project will go before City Council on September 17th, 2024 for approval. Anderson Avenue sidewalk improvements. Project open for bid September 10th, 2024. The responsive bidder is Freedom Building for a contract amount not to exceed $237,417.50. Operations and maintenance, staff removed parking curbs to connect the existing sidewalk on the north side of Central Avenue to the 4th Street intersection and created a new pedestrian improvement that enhances community safety and accessibility and connectivity. Mingus Park staff proactively treated the Mingus Pond for parrot feathers, an invasive aquatic plant that crowds native species. 6 standing dead trees have been removed. The trail from the Mingus Park Community Building to Mingus Park was rocked, and new bark mulch has been added to the park. At John Topic's Park, staff successfully installed a new entrance sign at the lower lake along with additional amenity signs. Boat ramps, the docks have been successfully reinstalled at the east side boat ramp after being damaged by a ship in February. Additional work that they've done, new bark mulch and new playground chips have also been added to Taylor Watson Park.
Thank you so much.
If I could just add, the Central Avenue Road project, the Anderson Avenue improvements project went to council on Tuesday. They were both approved. The Central Avenue was approved to go to final design and go out to bidding, and the Anderson Avenue sidewalk project was approved to go to contract with Freedom Builders. Also, just to let you folks know is Jamie and I had an opportunity, I think it was Tuesday, to meet with the Oregon Invasive Species Council. We met with them, and during that time I had an opportunity to speak with Sam, I forget the director's name.
Sam Chen, I think.
Samuel Chen. Yeah. We talked a little bit briefly about the invasive species parrot feather. I told him that was an issue that we're dealing with, is an ongoing issue. And he asked, what's the city's stance on using an herbicide? And I told him we were using Sonar One. And he said that is the best mechanism or medium to treat parrot's feather. So he says we're doing the right things. And he said to continue to do that. He said that was the best way of going about it. So I think we're on the right track. Also, one thing that I would also like to point out is that this year that staff, not only did we get the east side boat ramps put back in the water after being damaged, they were heavily used over the last couple weeks. And also we did pressure wash and repaint the restrooms out at the Empire fishing station, or fishing lodge as well. And so we've been able to do some updates to the facilities. One that was gravely damaged, and the other one just needed a little bit of TLC, and so we were able to do those things. So
And I think you need applause for getting the boat ramp done and open before salmon season,
Well,
so.
staff did a great job. Yeah, thank you, thank you. We could have done it without the efforts of ODFW was really instrumental in that, as well as OSMB as well, working with our partners, Army Corps of Engineers. It was just an amazing effort to get it all done in such a short amount of time. I think when it was first damaged, the estimate that first came out was 12 to 18 months before we get it back in the water. I think we had I think we were at right around 7 months from complete failure to new installation. So super excited about that. So thank you. It was a good effort.
Yeah, we need to celebrate our wins, and that's a big win.
We absolutely do.
Who bore the costs of that?
The repairs to the east side boat ramp, it was insurance. We went with the insurance company. Insurance went after the boat company's insurance, and as far as I know, insurance companies covered the complete cost of those.
Sure. Coco, do you need any help or any documents from us or anybody for the November 1st revision deadline for the National Registry?
No, what we're working on, I wanted to first of all thank the city staff, Christina Texera, Jennifer Wershing, and Greg Hamblett, and Lance Noel, people that have put in an inordinate amount of time just to get this. There is tons of paperwork that you have to do, whether you get a grant or not. Even if you pay a grant writer, you still have to do all that footwork. And I just can't say enough on how much this takes, and thank you. Secondly, we are working with the individual that was assigned to us from State Historic Preservation Office. It is very difficult to meet some of the Section 8 on the register in that there is nothing like that cabin to compare, and they require 2 comparatives. I found one in Bend that is not like it, but that makes it even stronger. So it's a tight time frame. We're dealing with someone that's going to be taking some leave time. That's our assigned person, so we're trying to meet their requirements. There's a WPA building that's abandoned, but it was under government, so it's very difficult to do some of the things they're asking, and we're hopeful that by having them want to compare us to, for example, Timberline Lodge, okay, that's the closest WPA under the park, recreation, and entertainment. That's like me comparing a steam engine to a Volkswagen. They are both transportation. But who was behind it, and the fact that you had a National Park Service, which was colossal in getting FDR's money for those types of things, and they also used the Civilian Conservation Corps, which is quite different. That's like having the military build your dam, as opposed to Jamie coming in and then going home in the evenings. So we're working through that part, but it is a difficult process. It makes it stronger that we should be on that register, but you have to meet those boxes. And I just told them I'm stumped, because if there's nothing that exists, it's really hard to do a comparative, because you would have to jump outside. There's buildings in Bandon, that was the old city hall, but those were not used for recreation and entertainment. It was built specifically for a city hall, so I can't jump the category and compare. So it's a lot of hours, and I really appreciate the city staff for helping. So I'm gonna meet again next week and see if they have a comment on 2 other things are not existing anymore. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. We'll cross our fingers and see what happens, but that's what I have.
Thank you, Coco.
I have a question or two. I know it's awful soon. I noticed the Mingus Park restrooms, there was that grant requested to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department on the 18th. I know that was just yesterday. Any informal stuff that maybe they're going to say yes or no, or they're saying yes? You probably said it and I didn't hear it.
I said that in here,
Thanks.
so I apologize, I changed.
No, it wasn't you, it was me. And then same sort of thing, I noticed we had a archaeological investigation to make sure we were okay for the rewilding down there. Did that turn out okay?
Yes, we received those results this morning with no findings.
Cool, good. I also noticed on here, going back to my 10% for the Front Street thing, that we put in a grant request to help cover part of that cost, which is great. So maybe it all will come out of Bike and Ped money after all. And I forgot to ask this question before, so I'm going to ask it now, and I apologize. On the bottom of that one for Front Street, we showed the things that were encumbered already, right? And I think there was about $38,000 for the old Sherrill's Mingus Park route. Is that money we've actually spent, or is that money we think we may have to spend on the design?
So far, we've got a potential, we have $7,000 that have been designated for the Central Avenue Bike Lane project. We've got $38,000 estimated or designated for the Sharrows or the bike infrastructure project for design. So about $45,000 encumbered for that. If we are successful at that grant and we have to do the 10.27% match, that's another $74,000. So combined, it's about $111,000 of potential encumbered dollars in that line item that has $167,000 budget.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, have we actually spent the $38,000 or not? And the reason I ask that is because we have a little joint meeting with the city council, and they may say, sorry guys, we like that, but, and so it's just something that we've kind of pigeonholed off the side, say it's going to be an expense, but we haven't spent that money. And I only ask because I get confused, because I know we asked street engineers to do some studies on that, and money had to come for that from somewhere too, so.
So only 7,000 out of your budget has actually been encumbered.
Okay.
But we are earmarking these other two buckets, if you will, the 10.72 match and then the Mingus to market bike improvement facility design.
Okay.
And so those numbers are just letting the commission know we have these dollars that this body has committed in recommendations out of that fund.
Yeah, just not firm. Okay.
Not spent yet.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to know. Okay, and a couple last things. The thing with the fire marshal, they had a problem with worrying about displacing the unhoused in the park. Is there a little bit of background information there about, I mean, why did a fire marshal have difficulty with that?
So this is, I think this is coming from our governor, absolutely. It's required, and they were very concerned. So we kind of pivoted, and they really liked our idea about the defensible space around the perimeter. And I think we're going to get just as much benefit than our original plan, which was the southern half, clearing and grubbing. We may be able to find other sources for that. So it just, I think it's coming from.
Okay. And the only reason I ask, and maybe Coco or someone else on the commission knows, was my understanding that it wasn't legal to camp in parks.
So the city has adopted a no camping ordinance, and camping in the parks, overnight camping in the park, is not allowed in our ordinance.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know that before COVID, before all the fires that we've been experiencing over the last 10 to 15 years that has displaced numerous amount of people that went from having something to homeless, if you use money that has come from the federal government, even if you're cleaning up a drug house, if you displace someone, you are responsible for finding housing for them. In the 1990s, it was for 18 months. There was a lot of people that unfortunately have different situations, and they want to make sure that there isn't an adverse impact on them because they are unhoused. And that's been on the books for a long time.
So we're thinking the money that the Oregon Fire Marshal gets is federal money, so he's required to do that?
I would guess that. I'm not saying, but our state also has that same situation because of so many people that are ending up living on the streets and in other spaces because of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the loss of housing due to wildfires and structures. They want to make sure that we're not discriminating and disparaging and impacting people negatively by displacing them with large public works projects, I guess is the best way to say
So we
that.
have a conflict between city ordinances and state requirements, is what you're telling me?
Not necessarily, because you need the city ordinance to define the locations that are not allowed. So the city ordinance basically is in place so that someone can't pitch a tent in Mingus Park and camp there. But in the underbrush surrounding John Toppet's and some of our other areas that are not well visualized, people have been set up camp and have been kind of established there for a period of time.
So just our ordinance does not allow for camping in our parks. So if there is a camp that is discovered in the parks, the police will notice that park, a 72-hour notice, or a camp in the park. They'll notice them with a 72-hour, you must leave. And then they'll go in and remove those folks. I
They
don't know
offer,
that.
we have a community resource.
So then we can, then if they don't comply with that, then they could be vacated from the property. But that's a police department issue. So we do have a camping ordinance. Camping is not allowed, overnight camping is not allowed in the park. Now, I don't know if the rules that this grantor is looking for is day gathering or whatever the situation may be. I don't know what that is looking for, but we don't have any rules against gathering there during the daytime, just overnight camping. So we do have a camping ordinance.
Yeah, because Simpson Park over in North Bend, all the underbrush got cleaned out of that a number of years ago because of some of the issues that they had with camping. So enough of that negative stuff. Greg, I just have to show you, I have smiley faces on all these things because you guys have done such a good job, and I really appreciate it, on 2 aerators in Mingus Park and the thing going, which is wonderful too. And I have to tell you that these charts that you provided for the restroom funding strategy and the Mingus Park community building funding strategy is really simple to follow, and so you really know where we're at money-wise, and so I really appreciate those two. Those are really well put together, so thank you. So, and I appreciate Carmen and Jamie working on the Safe Routes to School stuff too that was submitted, so because it looks like it's moving right along as well.
And I don't know if that's something that we should add on for either October or November agenda, is an update from Carmen and Jamie on any movement on the Safe Routes to School, or if you want to cover that in your commissioner comments when there is stuff to discuss.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely want to put that on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
For October?
Yeah. And then let's move on down to 3G, consideration to rename the Adopt a Park Pilot Program Subcommittee to the Adopt a Park Pilot Program Fact-Finding Committee. I don't think this takes any further discussion, as we've discussed committees extensively.
So I do have action requested.
We do, and I think we are ready to take an action,
Okay.
unless we would like to discuss further. No. I'm calling for a first. Coco?
So moved.
I've got a first from Coco, a second from Carmen. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then down to future agendas and regular meetings and work sessions. We just discussed in October adding on an update for the Safe Routes to Schools. We are having the update on the urban renewal for our next work session on the 3rd. And then also don't forget that on September 24th, Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Correct.
here in this room.
Correct.
Is the joint work session with Parks and with City Council. Who thinks that they are able to attend that? Patty, Coco?
What date?
Tuesday, the 24th.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah.
I should be able to.
Jamie? Okay. Kurt will be here. Carmen, maybe? He has to wear 2 hats, so.
I will definitely be there.
Okay. Okay. Yes, 6, and then it can go up till 9 o'clock.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so. And so I will be in attendance also. I may be a few minutes late because I will be driving back from Portland. So as long as the traffic gods are in my favor, I'll be on time. If they are not, I will be a few minutes late, so I apologize for that. Any other suggestions for future agenda items that we need to add to our list? Coco?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to mention is getting back to fundraising for the grants that we have in the hopper. When we're looking at the community building, I've brought up different things that people could do. It doesn't take much time, such as the letter writing campaigns, et cetera. One of the stipulations that I believe was stated by the Ford Family Foundation was wanting to see more of a community effort put into the community park, the community building, formerly known as the Scout Cabin, which never has been owned by the Scouts. The Scouts don't have the ability to put any money or anything into it, and there's a minimal amount of Scouts using that. Getting some of the things updated through Adopt a Park. We've just had a few people, but we need more synergies from the city council, the city people that live here, to know that the building exists, what it is, et cetera. We do have a sign that's going to be put up, but that's something that I would like us to see is the grants that are on here that have specific questions on how much do we have that's being put in by the community. And it's money that's not being, we can show that we've had money put in, I think $5,000 or $6,000 already in the building, but they want to see money that's going into that particular project. And the most looming project is getting the foundation done, which requires getting a chimney removed. So we want to get on that because those timelines are not infinite. And if we don't meet that, we'll end up giving grants back. Thank you.
Thank you, Coco. Additional items that we'd like to add to the agenda? Items of concern? No. Let's roll on down to staff and commissioner closing comments or additional comments in general. Coco, anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I wanted to note that we had a pilot project thing with Jamie Faraday, myself, I believe Lance Knoll, and it was the invasive species known as holly in our parks is a hardwood. And we did some test water bars with a process known as Shashugiban. If you have holly and you don't take the bark off and you leave them, even if you cut them, you're going to get sprouts, and that's going to continue. There's also an issue of if you need to have water bars or fencing or other things, can you use a hardwood? By using a technique that the Japanese used for thousands of years where you take the bark off and you burn the hardwood, it makes it pest resistant, it keeps it from dry rot, and it keeps it from sprouting. So we have 2 water bars that we tested with using rock anchors because rebar is not recommended anymore on trails for a variety of reasons. And that's to try to help keep that gravel that was just redone from going down that steep trail into that, I call it I don't know, Greg had a word for it, but anyway, it's the one that Bev's been talking about for years. And it was one that looks like at one time it might have been an engineered catch basement, but it's so full of debris now that you can't put easily water bars down there to keep that lower end. So we're going to be looking at that, but we've had a couple of rain and we're going to put an article in just for public information. Mm-hmm. But using that resource could help us with other projects. It's just you have to be careful when you're doing the Shoshone Band, and fall and winter are the best time. So it's hopeful if we can identify those types of things and get them out of the park and then maybe have a reuse for them for posts. I believe that Jamie is trying some things with cedar so that we can get away from pressure-treated posts and things like that that also impact our water. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Jamie?
In the same vein as, we've changed the name to Fact-Finding Committee, Subcommittee. Using the same forms for the Adopt a Committee, Adopt a Park. There is one building in the park system that is well known, and that's the Mingus Park pool building. And I'm on the pool board, and we had a meeting last night, as a matter of fact. And I suggested that we start using some forms for the many people that do already volunteer there. Because we run on a shoestring budget, and Kathy needs a lot of help, and so she asks for it and she gets it, and even when she doesn't ask for it, she gets it. So I think in the same vein of showing our grantors that we have interest in a park facility, we will get that started to be documented.
That makes sense.
Last Saturday, the SWAC students and staff teamed up with the beautification committee at Toppets Park, and I don't know how many total people were there and how much stuff and camps and different things that they did, but the camps are a problem on our property back there, along ocean, not ocean, but shoreline. And they go back and forth, as we know. And the college is working on, we have the trail project that will put some trails in around campus and some trails back there, which should help the problem, but that's where a year or so out. But it's a huge problem, and we're going out there every other day, our employees, to mitigate and try to keep it from getting too out of control. But
Kurt? Nothing? Okay. Carmen, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
I'd just like to thank staff for a great meeting and all the information updates. Just a lot of responsiveness to our requests and keeping us informed, and that's super helpful. And we're making great progress. Y'all are making great progress. I just wanted to give credit where credit is due and say thank you to the staff. That's all I have.
Thank you, Carmen. I just want to remind everyone again about the joint work session on Tuesday. Starts at 6 o'clock here. The main items that are under discussion, of course, are our Parks Commission goals, the bike facilities improvement project from Front Street to Mingus, and then the creating a Parks Commission fact-finding committee for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. All things that we have discussed quite a bit here, and I think this is our opportunity to have council's ear, and so we can explain the importance of some of the decisions that we do make here. So hopefully it is the first of maybe a twice a year event that we can do where we can make sure that we're on the same page, and I look forward to that. So thank you everyone for coming in here today. I appreciate everyone's time, energy, and efforts, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. We're adjourned.
Thank you.